The Justice Department told the court in our case, if a president has records after he leaves office, they're presumptively personal. And the court said the Presidential Records Act, there's no other way to interpret it than to provide deference to the president as deciding whether or not he keeps records or what he takes with him, essentially. And under the Presidential Records Act, the vice president, to bring it forward, has the same sorts of power. So, you know, despite what you might hear from some folks who quite fairly question, you know, the hypocrisy of the Biden administration here, we're being consistent. Vice President Biden at the time had the same power under the law President Trump did to take records with him under the Presidential Records Act, because those records would necessarily include classified records. Remember, Trump said to the FBI, DOJ officials who visited his home, he said, you know, you're free to look at, you know, look at these records. His people said, look at these records if you want to look through them. And they said, no, no, no. And then they raided his home and they kept all the lawyers out. And when it came to Biden, no raid. Certainly the FBI showed up, and I guess there was a threat of subpoena, but there was no subpoena. There's no grand jury. And they're slow walking the search for and disclosures of those searches of classified information. I think the most significant issue is the records that Biden has up in the Senate, or from his Senate days up in Delaware. He came to a secret deal with the University of Delaware to maintain and house his records, and he's hiding them from the American people. The deal allegedly requires the University of Delaware to keep the records secret until at least 2 years after he leaves political office. So that means, for practical purposes, we won't see if this deal is followed, and for instance, President Biden is reelected, records until, what's today? Today is the 20th, we're in 2023, 24, 28, 2030. That's when we're going to have no more carbon in the world, right? Thanks to all these electric vehicles, and we'll have the Senate records. How do you think that's going to turn out? The University of Delaware is desperate to avoid disclosing the nature of the agreement and the nature of the funding of of the maintenance of the Senate records for Joe Biden.